Hey everyone, today we are going to be talking a little bit about this show She-Ra, which you can watch on Netflix, and discuss a little bit about why adults seem to like this show so much. So we're doing a little roundtable with a couple of guests, and I'll give them a chance to introduce themselves, and then we'll jump right into it. So Amy, if you want to start off by introducing yourself.
Hey, my name is Amy. I love Shira. That's why I'm here. And I just generally love kid shows like The Airbender, Legend of Korra, and I also am a CGI producer, so just kind of dabble here and there.
Awesome, Risha.
Hi, I'm Risha, they, them pronouns. I also really love Legend of Korra. I like animated series like Ruby. I really like Kill la Kill. I also like
Oh,
a
great
lot of
show.
sci-fi things, like
Cowboy
Battlestar
Bebop.
Galactica. And yeah, I really love Shira. It's also why I'm here.
And my name is Lady Suki. I use she, her pronouns. I like animation in general, but I like Steven Universe, Avatar: The Last Airbender, Star versus the Forces of Evil, OK KO, and I also am a huge anime nerd too. So it's generally all around the board.
Awesome, cool. So this chat is not going to have any spoilers in it, and then we'll do a little separate chat afterward about why we enjoy it, especially the full storyline. But just starting off, like, what are some of the greatest things you think about this show? I know we mentioned a couple of things when we were chatting a little bit before, but around friendship, working together, owning up to your mistakes. Like, if anyone wants to start off, like, what's kind of like the main thing that you really enjoy about this show?
I think for me, Shira was the show. I'm queer, lesbian, female identifying, and like it's the queer show I've always wanted because as a kid I was obsessed with playing Zelda with and like I always imagined being the main character but as a girl, and so seeing someone wielding a sword, being putting down the bad guys, who's a very strong female, and she's buff too, like awesome. Like it's like the show I was like, wow, this is the show I've always wanted. And maybe that's why I watched Shira 3 times through. So
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's such a great show in terms of also representation, in terms of like the diversity on the show. It's not just women characters, it's strong people regardless. It's like people working together. Like I think it's just, yeah, it's definitely a show that I think is a great show for any kid to watch because it's just extremely diverse. People will see themselves represented in so many of the different characters. Like, I don't know if any of you want to talk a little bit about like the diversity within the show, but I think that's like one of the things that appeals to me the most about it.
What I really like is the body representation, because growing up, I was never really like thin. So it was nice to see characters that were muscular, that were a little bit thicker, and then I also like the fact that they accurately depict what a short person looks like, like in Chapter, because they always make like short people look really dainty, and most short people aren't dainty. So it's just something I really enjoy. I also like that there's a lot of like women of color in there too, which is something I normally didn't see growing up. So it was really good to see that.
Yeah, and I think for every aspect of those, there's just multiple people. So there's multiple people of different body types. It's not just like the one token person for each thing, which is really cool. And yeah, just the amount of different types of diversity that you see there is really cool. And you can see yourself represented not just by one character, but you can identify with multiple things from multiple characters, which is really awesome to me.
Yeah, and without spoiling too much, there's some characters who have like, height difference or body size difference, and it's just, and even some like age gap stuff that's kind of ambiguous, but it was definitely like super diverse in like the types of representation they have, and that's like super amazing. And I'd agree, like the body types is like so different. There are like really really slender people, but there's also, you know, regular really buff people, like super super buff people, like extremely extremely buff people, and then there's people who are like partially robots and like clones or cyborgs or whatnot, and it's like super super diverse. And I think that's like one of my favorite things about the show for sure.
I think they even like bring it to the next level because with having that representation in body types and also people of color or things like that and sexuality, is like it's all everyone's accepted. It's not like they, you know how like there's like a lot of shows that kind of just like, oh, like, you know, I love my bodacious curves. It's sort of like, no, they don't have to put on the forefront and like make a big loud message about it. People are just like, you're here, let's go, you know, let's go take care of the horde, let's go, like, you know, fight these people. Like they just went for it. And it was just so accepting and cool. And I think that's like a lot of characters as people will watch is like there are different kinds of princesses, and they don't fit the typical Disney princess stereotype. They're just there, and they all have their quirks, and everyone just accepts it. Like they just love that person for who they are, which is so awesome. And I think that just made it so much more wholesome.
Yeah, I would definitely describe the show as wholesome. I'd also describe it as really funny. Like there's a lot of parts where I was like laughing and I was like, the show is so silly, but it's like so funny and enjoyable to watch. It's just like a fun watch. And like I kind of finished I'm very close to finishing my second rewatch just to kind of prepare for this like chat. But it's like it's so good. It's so funny. And there's a lot of things that you'll like notice and you'll be like, oh, that's so brilliant. Like they did that so well. Yeah. It's uplifting too. I think I would also describe the show as like very uplifting. It's like about a good message of like fighting evil and like questioning maybe your realities and doing what you've kind of come to decide is right, and like meeting people of different backgrounds and accepting them too.
Yeah.
I
Even when
agree.
it gets like uh darker or more scary, and even when like characters have conflicts, they work it out, and they, you know, they do it in a kind of mature way. They talk to each other about issues, and there's certain issues like friendship issues, being possessive, like that stuff is addressed, and you don't normally see that kind of thing, and you don't see friends having those types of conversations in a lot of shows, which is really cool.
Yeah, there's definitely like insecurities that they talk about, I think, that are super
Mhm.
relatable. And yeah, I think a lot of people say that this show is about friendship, which it truly is. And I feel like something in today's society, I think that we're slowly learning is that we're our lives shouldn't really revolve entirely around our romantic relationships. It's like there's so much value in our platonic relationships, and they can be deep, if not as deep as our romantic relationships, for sure. And it really
Yeah.
gets into it. Like friendships take work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really
What I,
great show for that.
what I also like is that they address issues with um, self-esteem and confidence, which is something that I think everyone could struggle with at any level of life.
Yeah,
And it
Yeah.
does it pretty well. That's what I also really loved about the show.
yeah, like this like confidence in not in just in self, but also just how, like, you know, I think there are talks of some characters struggling with friendship, or like what does a friendship look like, and what can it do for me, and what can it do for you, and like how to balance that, and treating each other right, and also treating ourselves right in those relationships, which is really neat.
Oh, also apologies. Like when some
Yeah,
characters
Yeah, that's
did something wrong, like they actually apologize to their friends, and it's like a really good model of that.
yeah, for
Like,
sure. And then
yeah.
also they showed the struggle with knowing when to apologize. And like there were definitely some things where, you know, that was a really big mess up or mistake made, and they, like, you as you watch the show, they develop how they worked through that apology, or how to work through forgiveness. I think there's like this one scene, I won't
Mhm.
remember, but like that scene is, I want to talk about it, but it's like so important because I think, and they talk about like, you know, a character apologized, and they said like, you know, you can be angry, or you can be, you know, whatever you're feeling, and like that's okay, because I'm still going to be here, like no matter what. Like, you know, they acknowledge not only like what they did wrong, but acknowledge like you have every right to feel the way that you're feeling, because I did royally mess up. And then the other character was just like, okay, I'll take it, or like, you know, I accept this. And then
What I also really like about the show, like other than the, like you said, like doing apologies, toxic relationships,
Mhm.
and then what a lot of kid shows don't like to do, but this one does, is like actually address a lot of like some mental issues and also like eternal struggle. Not like, yeah, it's okay, paint a rainbow, it's done, we can move on with our lives now. Like they actually feel human, like actual people, not just people in a story, if that makes sense.
yeah, like they have a realness, like I think their choices actually feel like they have weight to them, and that are actually consequential, and the choices they made, I think, actually follow through with them throughout the show. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, and it's a lot
people.
about forgiveness and like the ability to change, like recognizing that you're wrong, like admitting like, oh, what my preconceived notions about these people were wrong, and I apologize, and I'm going to work to make a change, because I think it's really relevant also in like today's society about like racism and other things like that. There's a lot of that. It's not really explicitly stated as racism, but there is a lot of themes where people thought, oh, these people are like this, or like this whole group, like the people and like the bad people were brainwashed to think like regular citizens of the world are evil and they're actually the good ones, and like they start to realize, oh, maybe that's not really the case.
That
And like
sounds like
it's
our today's society.
yeah. It's so real.
That's too real.
Yeah.
Man, what other reasons this show is so good, especially in story. Yeah, the characters have a lot of depth to them. Yeah, for sure.
I think one other thing that I wanted to bring up in terms of kind of good representation is there are some couples who are same-sex couples in the show, and like the way they're treated, I think is really kind of revolutionary. Um, they are treated just like regular people, and it's not even brought up that, oh, that person's in a same-sex relationship. It's just like, oh, that's just them, and there's not even like an issue, and that's kind of like even more progressive than where our society is like right now.
I also love how in Chira it is predominantly queer.
Yeah.
It's like the hetero passing, I think, like couples are in the minority, and that's so refreshing to see. It's awesome. Yeah, but it's awesome and weird, surreal at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not just one couple, it's multiple couples, which is so rare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like so neat, because I think watching the show, I think I never realized it, but when I was watching it, I was like, wow, I feel so comfortable. What is that? And it's because like, well, not only are there queer couples or queer representation on the show, but it's like it's not even questioned, you know, and or like there's like things that they don't have to worry about, you know, that we do in our society. And, you know, like girls can dress however they want. They can have short hair and no one will question them whether they're going into the right bathroom or something like that. And yeah, I think it's really neat to get that insight to, oh, there also can be peace in this kind of way. Like a world like this can exist.
Like a
Yeah.
sense of normalcy to it all. Like,
Yeah, like we can all be nice to each other, you know. What a concept.
Yeah, and in the show, there's also a non-binary character, which we won't delve too deep into to not have any spoilers, but it's people will use the proper pronouns for people, and it's not even like a question. It's just like, oh, that's just who they are, and we'll respect how they wish to describe and wish to present themselves, and that's fine. It's like not even an issue. It's so non talked about that it's just amazing.
Yeah, that hit me so hard. It was just like so natural. I'd never seen someone using they, them pronouns in a cartoon before this. And I was blown away. And it was just like, oh my God, what if young me saw this? That would be so good.
Yeah, honestly, I wish this was a show that we were introduced to when we were younger, but I guess it'll be a gift for younger generations.
Mm-hmm.
What if it's not a gift? What if it's just a standard?
Wow.
I like that.
Right? Because, like, I feel like the standard now is just always being very heteronormative or very white centric. But what if it's not a gift? What if it's just like we just need more content like this so that it is a standard? Or like it's like, oh, this is a show about like queer people, like that's cool, awesome. Yeah, we need more content like this.
We do.
Need more things like Steven Universe or yeah.
I miss Steven Universe.
I do too.
I cried at the last episode. Oops. Yeah, my sister was like, Melanie, what's wrong? And I'm like, it's over. I watched this show for like several years and it's over now. And she's like, oh my God.
I just watched that show recently and yeah, super amazing. And I feel like all kids should watch it. It should be like required curriculum. Same with Tria.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed the leaders in the show, like especially, you'll see when you watch the show, there's like the leader of the good people, and she has like a lot of turmoil in herself, and but she's still doing her best job, trying her best to lead. And I think the show does a really good job of like, trying your best even though it's not perfect, and you can admit, your own faults to people, and you can be like a vulnerable person but still like just doing your best. And there's a lot of just really good leadership that is displayed in the show, and a lot of really strong women leaders in the show as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the thing I was forgetting. It's like most of the leaders are women, not like even the ruler of the kingdoms are not men. It's like matriarchies all around. I'm here for it.
Yeah. Also, no one like questions their lead. Well, it's not like you have men questioning the leadership. Like people, other women do question the leadership, but it doesn't have that overarching patriarchal dynamic to it, which is great and refreshing.
Yeah, it's like not out of because like you're a woman, like I must question you. It's sort of like
right.
I question you because like our like there's a lot at stake here, and I am not sure like you're making the best choices right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's so much self growth. I think in this series where they also talk about fear, and like trying to understand each other's fears and also trust. In every sense, and it's so deep. Oh my God.
So many layers.
So many layers. Yeah, so many layers of trust between like characters and just in like life in general, and also like I think, do they touch on like a scarcity mindset? I feel like there wasn't actually a lot of scarcity mindset among a lot of characters, right? There was like almost like nothing holding them back because of who they were, but maybe because of circumstances of like the world that they're in, which I think was really refreshing to see too. I don't know if that made sense to anyone else.
It did.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's one other thing that I thought was really amazing, and they're just minor characters, so I don't really consider this a spoiler, but yeah, there's some really good family representation, like of diverse families, and not just like ethnicity, but also like, same-sex couples. And like I thought that was really cool, like to have like a very sweet and loving relationship that's shown on this show, that's also extremely diverse, and like to see like different representations of like different ethnic backgrounds and things like that is really cool. Yeah.
And then there's also the non-traditional models for like what a family structure represents, not the traditional four, like 3 to 4 people family structure as well.
Mhm.
There's
Yeah.
like the families you're born into and the families that you create dynamic, which I really liked.
Yeah. And no one held any, I think, grievances for those. Like, it's like, oh, like that's okay, because obviously you can have really, really deep relationships outside of your family.
Mhm. And it does cover a little bit of like abuse too within like your family, or your like,
Oh
there's some
yeah.
people who are like orphans, and there's some people who are basically like foster children, and it kind of has like a lot going on with like abusive relationships too, but they don't really describe it as abusive, but it is, as like a person who's a little bit older, you will be able to recognize like what the issues at hand are.
Yeah. And I think like even within that, like also I think with a lot of abuse is also like how it stems from like lack of self-worth, and how you can like really lose yourself in people who can manipulate you and take advantage of you and your insecurities. And they also talk about trauma, like it's also taps into like trauma as well. So good. When can we talk about spoilers?
It's so hard to not talk about spoilers.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I feel like that's the show does so much development like over time without like trying to give too much away. There's so much development that goes on in the show, like character development and just like the story. It's just, yeah, it's hard to describe without really watching it. So, I mean, I guess if we're kind of wrapped up, if anyone has any last things to say, like pre-spoiler, then we can have our spoiler chat after this.
I feel like if you like, I don't think Shira is for everyone, for sure. Um, because I think the story in itself, it's really well done. But if you had replaced all the queer characters or people of color with white people, white cis hetero people, I think it would just be another fantastical, mythical, quest in its own and be very generic. But I think it's really special because of its representation and also the character development that they do. But if you're, of the LGBT plus community or a person of color who wants to watch something where things are normalized and you just want to feel accepted and just watch badass women doing badass things, like, and have flaws and grow and work through their issues, then I would definitely recommend watching the show.
Anyone else want to have any other closing moments that they want to share?
No, good.
Just whenever someone on screen encounters a muscular woman and is amazed by them, it's very funny. And also the attention to drawing muscles in this show is great. That's all.
Cool, cool. Thanks everyone for being here. I will just wrap up. I think the acting is really great on the show, actually. And they actually have a lot of really amazing like voice actors on the show. And there's actually a lot of diversity even within like the cast. So I think that that's like another really amazing part of the show. It's not just like the diversity that's depicted visually, but the diversity of the actors and the people working on the show. I thought was really awesome too. And I actually think it's a good story, even if you replace some of the more diverse pieces with, your standard cis like hetero folks. I think the story is still like a very positive story, and it's still about like working hard and growth and friendship, and it's got a lot of good themes that I think would be fun for children or adults alike to watch. So yeah, check out the show and let us know what you think. Feel free to drop it in the comments, hit the like button if you want to see more discussions in the future. But thanks again, everyone, for being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks
Yeah.
for having us.